For more free videos, go to zeroxbilliards.com. All the videos are organized so learning the game of pool has never been easier. From fundamentals to kicking, banking, breaking, and cue ball control, we have all the videos you need to supercharge your game. At this angle, he needs to strike the side rail here to end up below the 6. So now he needs to aim the 5 toward this spot on the rail. And since there is more distance between the cue ball and object ball, he's going to have to use a little more low on the cue ball. In this shot, he doesn't have the ideal angle in the 5 to put the cue ball behind the 6. So in this shot, he's going to bank the 5 toward this end rail and try to leave the cue ball behind the 9. The main goal of this shot is distance. Ending up behind the 9 is just a bonus. This type of shot requires a soft stroke using a little left spin. You want to strike the 5 hard enough though, so you don't leave it near the corner pocket. In this layout, the player has a tough shot on the 5. He can try cutting in the 5, but he may lose control of the cue ball. So in this shot, if he just draws the cue ball straight back, he can put the cue ball behind the 8 and leave the 5 ball at the other end of the table. Here's another example of just drawing straight back behind another ball. And many players like this type of shot because even if they miss putting the cue ball behind the blocker ball, they're still going to leave their opponent a long, tough shot. This defensive shot is a longer variation of an earlier shot. In this shot, the player is going to bank the 2 balls straight back up table near the 3. And he's going to try and put the cue ball behind the 9 and 6. And when he shoots this shot, he's just going to use high action with no spin. He needs to aim the 2 balls straight toward the end rail. If struck correctly, the high action will take the cue ball toward the end rail and straight back up. This is another shot that you may want to start off with easier versions. For instance, put the cue ball closer to the object ball until you can perform the shot consistently. Then, gradually, start moving the cue ball farther away. This is a shot that top players perform all the time, but it's a shot that many players struggle with simply because they never practice it. In this shot, the player is going to strike the 2 ball thin with right hand spin. And his goal is to put the cue ball behind the 5 and 7. If struck correctly, the player doesn't need to strike the 2 ball very hard, just a nice soft stroke with right spin. In this shot, the player's goal is to end up just below the 5 and 7. So he's using more of a sliding cue ball on this shot. Once the cue ball hits the side rail with right spin, it naturally heads toward this area. Here's another version of this shot where the cue ball will be striking the end rail first, then spinning 2 rails toward our hiding spot. This shot takes a little bit of practice since you have to strike the object ball thin using spin. In this shot, the player has a tough shot on the 3 ball. Instead of trying to pocket the ball, he's going to send the 3 ball 2 rails toward the other end rail. And at the same time, leave the cue ball behind the 4 and 5. And when he shoots this shot, he'll be using a touch of right spin to help kill the cue ball. Players will try the shot even if there isn't a good chance of hiding the cue ball. The main goal of this shot is to leave distance between the cue ball and 5 ball. In this shot, the player is on the 4 and can't see enough of it to pocket it in the corner pocket. But if he can bank the 4 back up table, the cue ball will bank out the side rail and head down here just below the cluster. And players will perform this shot even when there isn't much chance of hiding the cue ball. When you practice this shot, try moving the cue ball closer to the object ball. Your goal is to leave the object ball near the other end rail, and the cue ball close to this end rail. Once you get comfortable with this shot, start moving the cue ball farther away. In this layout, the player is on the 5 and he's not comfortable with the cut shot. But using low left, the player can bank the 5 up table and go 2 rails behind the 7 and 6. Their goal is to have the cue ball heading toward the 7 as it leaves the side rail. Practice this shot until you can consistently control the cue ball coming off the side rail. And players will perform this shot even when there is only 1 ball to hide behind. So whenever you're trying to hide the cue ball behind 1 ball, you really have to be aware of the object ball's speed in case you don't hide the cue ball. For instance, here I wasn't able to hide the cue ball, but I left the 5 ball in a tough spot near the other end rail. In this shot, the player was left here on the 7. This type of safety comes up all the time and is almost automatic once you get the hang of it. He's going to cut the 7 ball thin using a little bit of left spin. And by doing this, he leaves the 7 ball near the end rail and the cue ball behind the 8 and 9. Here, the player mishit the shot, but he still left his opponent tough. This is a shot that comes up over and over again, so make sure you spend the time and get comfortable with it. In this shot, the player was left here on the 7. And many players try to hit the 7 razor thin and send the cue ball back up table. But at this distance, that's a very difficult shot to do. Another option is to aim to strike about half of the 7 ball, leaving his opponent a bank shot. This type of shot is much easier to perform than trying to hit the 7 ball razor thin. And if there's a ball near the side rail, you can focus on trying to put the cue ball behind this ball. But whenever you're trying to hide the cue ball behind only one ball, pay close attention to where the object ball is going, since there's the possibility that you won't be able to hide the cue ball. In this layout, the player ended up here on the 1. So in this shot, instead of trying a difficult cut shot, the player is going to aim to hit about half of the 1 using low action. His goal is to draw the cue ball toward the 7. Try not to use spin when performing this shot. This shot just requires a center low hit on the cue ball. Here's another example of drawing the cue ball below a blocker ball. This type of shot comes up quite often, but takes practice since you need to develop a feel for how much of the object ball you need to hit. In this shot, the player is on the 6 and doesn't like the bank shot, but the 7 ball is near the 6 ball line, which means if the player can barely hit the 6, the cue ball will come straight off the rail and hide behind the 7. And when you try the shot, put the cue ball close to the object ball until you become consistent at striking the object ball razor thin. And remember, you're just barely hitting the object ball. Also, try using a touch of right spin to help straighten out the cue ball. One of the most common types of safeties is the stun follow shot. This shot allows the player to strike the object ball firmly, moving it to the other end of the table, and at the same time move the cue ball just a few inches forward, placing it behind blocker balls. When you try this shot, you'll be aiming just a little above center. If you're getting too much follow on the cue ball, then you need to start aiming lower. This is one of the shots that separates strong players from amateurs. Keep practicing this shot until you can perform the stun follow from different distances. This is a powerful shot that comes up all the time. And here's another common safety. And this type of shot comes up quite often. For instance, in this example, the player is playing 9 ball and is on the 4 ball, but the 6 is tied up with the 7. Instead of trying to break them out, he can play a position for the 6 near the side rail. Now you can perform a stop shot on the 6 and hide the cue ball behind the 7. And you'll often see strong players play position for the stop shot safety, especially when the breakout is low percentage. For instance, in this example, the player played position for a defensive shot on the 7. Now he just needs to perform a stop shot on the 7, sending it to the other end of the table. To watch more free videos like this one, we set up a page that is filled with free videos covering every aspect of pool. All the free videos are organized by topic, so learning this great game of pool has never been easier. I put a link in the description that takes you directly to this webpage.